happy Thursday. So come on in, pull up a chair because the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer, back once again as your host here at The Daily Dope, presented by thegaminggang.com. Welcome aboard. Today is Thursday, December 13th, and I am going to be reviewing the Guildmasters Guide to Ravnica from Wizards of the Coast for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Kind of got mixed up which day I want to say first, for D&D or from Wizards of the Coast. So it's like hey, it's a live show, what can I tell you? So welcome aboard. If this is your first time stopping by, kick back. This is a very casual show. I just talk about mainly tabletop gaming, do some unboxings, first looks, do some reviews like I will be today. This is a live stream, so a little bit different than some of the shows that you probably watch about tabletop gaming, because this is just a live stream. This is coming from the Duct Tape Studios. This is not something where it's, everything's shot and cut and edited. It's all live right here for you folks. So anyway, since this is a live stream, there is chat available on YouTube. It is not available on screen. It's one of the ways that I kind of keep some of the stranger commenters at bay. But I do follow the chat off to the side. So if you want to say hello, want to just ask a question, maybe there's something about Guildmasters Guide to Ravnica you want to get a closer look at, or maybe talk a little bit more about in depth, then by all means, feel free and chime in. I will respond. All right, so got a little bit of news today. Not a ton of news, a little bit of news today. So I'm going to jump into that. And of course, I know there are some folks out there who are not big fans of the tabletop news segment every day. So, of course, I like to tell you that is the case. By all means, take a look in the show notes. There are timestamps. You can jump right ahead to the review or the section where I talk about what's coming up on future episodes. All right, with that said, let's get on to the news, because Stonemaier Games has a pretty interesting new game that's going to be coming out early next year. They're going to start taking pre-orders next month for Wingspan. Looks kind of unusual, and I've got the dope. Wingspan is a competitive, medium-weight, card-driven, engine-building board game from Stonemaier Games. As I said, sounds pretty interesting. You are bird enthusiasts, researchers, bird watchers, ornithologists, and collectors seeking to discover and attract the best birds to your aviary. Each bird extends a chain of powerful combinations in one of your habitats. Actions. These habitats focus on several key aspects of growth. Gain food tokens via custom dice in a bird feeder dice tower. Lay eggs using egg miniatures in a variety of colors. Draw from hundreds of unique bird cards and play them. The winner is the player with the most points after 4 rounds. If you enjoy terraforming Mars and gizmos, we think this game will take flight at your table. The official announcement and pre-orders will be available on January 2nd of next year. So this is official, but not completely official, right? So Wingspan is for 1 to 5 players, ages 10 and up. It's supposed to play in about 40 to 70 minutes. Game is scheduled for a Q1 release, so when those pre-orders start, the game will be shipping not long after. And there is no MSRP as of yet. So this looks pretty cool, pretty interesting. It's got that like bird feeder dice tower. I'm guessing we're probably seeing $49.99-ish. That's my guess as far as the MSRP. I could be way off. I don't know. But this does look pretty unique, pretty interesting. Definitely worth checking out. I get a kick out of how the little eggs are all different colors, and they sort of look like those Easter time Cadbury candy eggs. Not the big ones, not the big chocolate covered ones where it's got like the yolk, candy yolk and stuff inside. Talking about the little Cadbury eggs with a little candy shell almost on them. They look almost exactly like it. All right, so let's move on to some miniatures news, because Warlord Games has a brand new miniatures game that they're going to start taking pre-orders for tomorrow. And I've got the dope on Warlords of Erewhon. Warlords of Erewhon, our brand new fantasy war game designed by legend Rick Priestley, will be available for pre-order this Friday. Get in quick for exciting bonuses. What is Erewhon? Warlords of Erewhon transports us to the multifarious fantasy realms of fiction, folklore, and myth, placing us at the head of a fighting force of our choosing. Model warbands clash across fantastical tabletops as humans and monsters, the living and the dead, war over the spoils of victory in a universe of heroes, sorcerers, and the supernatural. Our game has been designed with a single objective in mind: to allow us to play fast-paced and exciting miniature battles on a 6x4-foot table between rival warbands. A warband represents your own band of warriors, courageous humans, bloodthirsty monsters, perhaps even minions that you have raised from beyond the grave to do your bidding. Your force might typically comprise of a few dozen models organized into loose groups of fighters, commonly 5 to 10 strong each, or a single model in the case of chariots, giant monsters, and war machines. This gives us our warband style game, large enough to provide scope for scenario building with plenty of opportunity to reward tactical play, but at the same time keeping things manageable in the terms of the size of our forces and space required. Warlords of Erewhon uses 10-sided dice, providing for a game with mechanical depth and considerable adaptability. An intuitive universal dice test system means that play proceeds at a good pace once players are familiar with the core mechanics. A host of unique and entertaining attributes ensure that different creatures fight and behave after their own fashion, bringing their own mix of strengths and weaknesses to the fight. Warlords of Erewhon will be available for pre-order tomorrow. You'll be able to get the core book and free special edition miniature titled Arise, O Restless Dead, which also happens to be the based on the artwork from the cover of the book, actually. Also, the first 500 people that buy the book and any of the launch bundles will receive a free sprue of plastic orcs or skeletons along with their order. In addition, anyone who pre-orders between 4 p.m. on Friday the 14th and I should say midnight on Sunday the 16th will get their rulebook signed by Rick Priestley himself. Sweet. I gotta admit, I have always wondered why Warlord Games really didn't have a big fantasy game. Tons of historical miniatures are really, really well known for their historical miniatures, like their bolt action World War II and their black powder. And then they've got some science fiction stuff now. Something of Antares, Gates of Antares, I think it's called. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think it's called Gates of Antares. Of course, they've got Blood Red Skies, so now they're into the aerial combat. But I never saw, like, fantasy. Oh, they got Doctor Who. Doctor Who's the other miniatures game that they do. They've got a bunch. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's Hail Caesar. But, I mean, there was something popping in my head. I was like, what am I forgetting? There's a game I'm forgetting. Yes, Doctor Who. So, kind of cool to see that they're doing some fantasy stuff. I always got to point out that Warlord Games, most of their miniatures are pretty fairly priced, so I definitely always dig that. All right, so my final news piece. It's Thursday. I always like talking RPGs on Thursday, and I always like to save you money. So I always like to share the latest bundle of holding. And this time, it includes 2 of Free League Publishing's hottest sellers, and here's the dope. Adventurer. This all-new Coriolis and Tales from the Loop bundle presents PDF ebooks of 2 English language tabletop role-playing game lines from Sweden's Free League Publishing. Tales from the Loop, about 1980s teens solving mad science mysteries a la Stranger Things, and Coriolis, The Third Horizon, an Arabian Night-style space opera. Both these RPGs adapt the Year Zero rule system from Free League's 2014 post-apocalypse RPG Mutant Year Zero role-playing at the end of days, which was actually presented in the Bundle of Holding back in July of 2018. Regardless, this bargain price bundle brings you the entire Coriolis and Tales from the Loop game lines in English for just $12.95. You get all 6 titles in the starter collection with a retail value of $45, all as DRM-free PDF ebooks, including the Coriolis The Third Horizon core rulebook, the Coriolis Atlas Compendium Setting Sourcebook, and 4 Coriolis supplements: Aram's Ravine, Artifacts and Faction Tech, Hammurabi, and the Mahanji Oasis. Mahanji Oasis. There we go. Mahanji Oasis. And if you pay more than the threshold price of $24.74, you'll level up and also get our entire bonus collection with 4 more titles worth an additional $50, including the complete Tales from the Loop core rulebook and its first supplement, Our Friends and Machines, and other mysteries, plus the full-length Coriolis Adventure The Dying Ship. New, also added to this bundle, is the previously exclusive Kickstarter Guildmasters screen for Coriolis, not available for sale anywhere outside of this offer. Got to keep in mind, 10% of your payment after payment gateway fees will be donated to this offer's designated charity, Doctors Without Borders. Very, very nice. Pretty sweet. Gotta say, I have reviewed both Tales from Loop and Our Friends the Machines, gave them both big thumbs up. So that is something to look forward to. And, Coriolis, not something I'm overly familiar with, but I just got the core book in the mail the other day. Was it 2 days ago? Well, I got to admit, this has like a weird kind of chemical smell to it. I might actually, well, it's raining today. I might put this like out in the garage for a couple of days to kind of air this out, because it's a very strong chemical smell on this book. But this looks like a really, really nicely done book. And I've heard some cool stuff about this game. Plus, of course, we're talking Free League Publishing. Their stuff is excellent. If you did not have a chance to check out my my flip through, my first look, my deep dive into Forbidden Lands, check that out. That was on Tuesday's show. Wasn't it Tuesday? Monday, Tuesday? I don't know. Sometimes these shows kind of all kind of stream together. It's Tuesday's show. And in fact, right here. Really, really nice. I mean, there's hardcover books in here and everything. If you're looking around at some different kind of fantasy role playing, definitely give that a peek. I will have a review of that probably not next week. Probably week after that. Probably the week between Christmas and New Year's. That is my guess. That's when we will see that. So anyway, what's cooking on the shows coming up? Well, I already told you. I have a review of that pretty soon. I am going to be diving into the Guildmasters Guide to Ravnica in just a couple of minutes, because I'm sure that's what people are tuning in to check out, right? But on tomorrow's show, I'm going to be doing tomorrow's show early, because my mom got into the Chicago area from Arizona tonight. So I'm going to go have dinner tomorrow night. So I'm going to actually be unboxing, taking a first look at Mystic Vale from my friends over at Alderac Entertainment Group. Yes, this is the core game. I have unboxed and done first looks at some of the expansions. Now finally got the core game to dig into the core game. So that's on tomorrow's show. Then on Monday's show, it's going to be kind of a family Dungeons and Dragons day, because on Monday night, I will be unboxing and taking a look at Dungeon Mayhem, the family-friendly card game set in the D&D world from Wizards of the Coast. Going to take a look at the ABCs of D&D. written by Ivan Van Norman from Hunter's Entertainment, as well as the 1-2-3s of D&D. So I haven't even cracked into these yet. I'm taking a look. Just want to take a look at the artwork. Kind of cool, kind of funny. So we will be taking a look at those on Monday. I think next Thursday, why don't we take a look at Coriolis, the core book. This looks like it's good 450 pages or so. Let's see what this comes out to. Oh no, I'm way off. It's 384. Oh, looked like it was a little over 400. All right, so that will be next week as well. I am also going to have a last-minute gift giving guide, and oh, it's something just popped up. Oh no, sorry, that's not in chat. It was a comment that popped up from a YouTube video. Anyway, I was going to say, oh yeah, okay. So next week I am also going to do a last-minute buyer's guide, a little holiday gift guide, right? So some cool stuff that you can pick up for the gamers in your life, or maybe put on your list for a last-minute gift, maybe stocking stuffer, something like that. And then on Christmas Eve, I am actually going to reveal my favorite games of 2018, including my favorite game of 2018. So that might be kind of a longer show. So I'm probably going to actually record that during the afternoon on Christmas Eve. All right. So without further ado, I know people are popping in here because they want to check out my thoughts on Guildmasters Guide to Ravnica, which is for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Lead designers were James Wyatt and Jeremy Crawford, with additional design work from Ari Levitch. I think it's Levitch. It's my guess. Ben Pietrasor, Mike Merles, Robert J. Schwalb, and Chris Tulloch. The book is 256 pages, does carry an MSRP of $49.95. And it is not available in PDF. Do want to point out, I have seen it from reputable online retailers for about $32. So just wanted to point that out. All right, so let's move on over to the other camera. Let's see. Can we focus this in a little closer? Let's look. Let's take a peek. Maybe not. Maybe can, maybe can't. Let's see. There we go. That's better. Yeah. That. See, the funny thing is now this camera that I've got that's shooting video here, that is not the camera I used to use. I used to use a different camera where I could just reach up and just kind of, adjust the focus and zoom in, zoom out. That's now the camera that shoots this. So this one is just a cam, really. But I have found recently that it seems like the videos are a little bit sharper. So that's why I played around with it and switched these around a little. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop on ye old reading specs and grab myself a quick sip here. It says, join the Guilds of Ravnica in this campaign sourcebook for the world's greatest role-playing game. Stand with your guild. The world's most popular role-playing game meets the world's most popular trading card game in this campaign sourcebook detailing the Magic the Gathering world of Ravnica for use in Dungeons & Dragons. From deep catacombs to sky-raking spires, Ravnica is covered in countless layers constructed over thousands of years. Lofty cathedrals, hulking courthouses, towering apartments, sprawling tenements, and cobblestone plazas spread as far as the eye can see. In this teeming cosmopolis, 10 guilds vie for power, wealth, and influence, held in an uneasy peace by a magical force called the Guild Pact. But the Guild Pact doesn't prevent the intrigue, subterfuge, and political machinations that are a hallmark of life in Ravnica. And now the Guild Pact is gone, or seems to be. What chaos might erupt if the ambition and rivalry of the guilds goes unchecked? It's up to you to choose your guild and shape the future of Ravnica. Of course, and it is for use with 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, they point out that you should have the core books, including the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, as well as the Monster Manual. Let's see. Let's pop this underneath here. Nope, that's not going to get rid of the glare. All right, that's fine. Should be all right once we get this opened up. All right, so a few things that I want to point out. Last time I did not give credit due for the artists when I was taking a look at Dungeon of the Mad Mage. So I want to make sure that I give credit for the art within. So we've got all of these illustrators, folks. All of these illustrators. All through here, all through here. And the reason why we've got so many more illustrator credits is because many of these illustrations in here, now I don't know if they're all, but I do know many of the illustrations in the book are actually from Magic the Gathering cards. So, and Magic the Gathering has always been known for really phenomenal artwork for the most part. So, talking about kind of an index here, talking about where you're going to be able to find the stat blocks. So I've been kind of building up to this review. I would have reviewed this last week if I hadn't been sick. But I had been kind of building up to this review by saying that this release kind of confuses me a little bit. I will talk about that in my conclusion when I give this a review score. Well, by saying that, I was not trying to imply that this is a bad book or I don't like it or anything like that. But because I had a couple of emails from people who were trying to get kind of like the advanced scoop from me as far as what I thought of the book. And they're like, oh, well, you kind of made some comments leading up to your review that it's not worth a purchase. And I was like, no, I never said that. I just said there's some things about the book that leave me kind of scratching my head. So let's dive in. Let's talk about what the book actually is. So what this is a setting book. This is a source book to bring one of the more popular locales of Magic the Gathering into Dungeons and Dragons. So we're looking at it's going to bring the ability to create adventures that take place in Ravnica for Dungeon Masters to be able to create those kind of adventures. Is this the kind of really in-depth background that you see in the various different like boxed sets that you would see from time to time that came out back in, old days, right? No, absolutely not. This is not going to be a book that is just, you read it and you're like, wow, I know everything I need to know about Ravnica. But that said, there's a lot of good information in here, and there's a lot of info that really kind of pulls you into the setting, which wasn't always the case back, in previous editions of D&D. I know a lot of folks talk about, and I remember it. I had the original Greyhawk boxed set. But the reality was sort of, everybody looks back on it with like this fond nostalgia. And I'm not saying it was terrible or anything like that. I'm not saying it was bad. It just was a lot more just kind of cut and dry. Just kind of there was stuff that you would kind of get your juices flowing in that, but not like nowadays that we see with a lot of releases. Now that being said, a lot of times a lot of adventures and stuff like that really need to be trimmed down. There's just way too much information that isn't needed at the table to run an adventure, right? If a game master is going to run a published or previously created adventure, there are certain aspects of like the backgrounds of the NPCs and stuff like that that really don't matter, which we tend to see a lot of that in a lot of adventures and stuff like that. So do want to point out, this is not going to be the like end all be all where it's like, wow, now I know everything about Ravnica. But there is a lot of good information in here, and the main focus is giving game masters the ability to create adventures in Ravnica. So one of the cool things, in my opinion, one of the biggest aspects biggest selling points of this guidebook is the ability to create characters with new races. Now, I do want to point out, these are not official. So, what is it? What is it? Adventurers League, I think, is what they consider like the official things that are, you know, officially sanctioned, right? Talking about like almost like Magic the Gathering, right? So you got like the Adventurers League for D&D. These character kin, I guess we'll say, species, I guess we'll say, are not official. But, I mean, you can play goblins. You can play centaurs. You can play the Loxodon, which are like these elephant people. Minotaurs. So, pretty sweet. So, we've got a bunch of different new species that characters can play. We've got some new stuff with druids. So, I thought that is pretty cool. So, we're talking about basically, the big point with Ravnica are the 10 guilds, the 10 different guilds that are all vying for power and things like that. So here it talks about classes by guild, because you have to figure you've got some guilds where the majority of their members would be, let's say, good, and usually, let's say, they're, you know, lawful, right? Now, you'll have others that they're evil guilds. In fact, like 4 of the 10 are truly what you would consider evil. A 5th is, I don't know, I guess we'll say more like chaotic neutral, leaning towards evil. But a lot of information about the guilds. Each of the guilds themselves. One of the cool things too that's included in here, a lot of different charts. A lot of different backgrounds, new backgrounds. I want to say there's, if I remember right, there's 10 new backgrounds, and in my opinion, I think the backgrounds were actually much more interesting backgrounds, and I guess we'll say kind of more in the flavor of this setting than, say, the usual backgrounds that we see like in the player's handbook. So I do like the new backgrounds. Anyway, I was going to say we've got quite a few different charts to kind of give your characters a little more flavor, a little more in tune with the guilds that they'll represent. So we're showing the different guilds here. Then we got like Boros. See, so we've got things like, there are some guild spells. So these are spells that if you're a member of this guild, you're probably going to know. They're going to be added to your spellcasting list if you are a spellcaster. Got personality traits, ideals, bonds, flaws, Boros contacts, non-Boros contacts. So a lot of different charts you can utilize, give the characters, you know, a little different twist. So the vast portion of the book is really devoted to the various different guilds. Now, I do want to point out that it's a cool source book, but if you're a dungeon master and you have been involved with Dungeons and Dragons for a period of time, let's say from editions earlier than 5th, and if you're not if you're not playing Magic the Gathering, or if you're not a fan of Magic the Gathering, I don't know if there's really a selling point to this outside of saying, hey, you know what? This is a different source book. This is a different kind of setting book. It's not as kind of generic as the Forgotten Realms kind of feels sometimes. It's kind of a better source book than the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, or Adventurer's Guide to Sword Coast. I forget what the title is exactly on that. But I can't see it being like, wow, I got to get my hands on this if you don't have really an interest in Magic. So, taking a look at the various different guilds still. And and the way the guilds are pretty much laid out and presented to the game master is very similar. Talk about the cult goals, or I shouldn't say cult, the guilds, their goals, and so forth. What kind of characters, what kind of character personalities are going to fit in. One aspect of Ravnica that might be a little tricky is if the players all want to represent different guilds, because might be a little tricky pulling that off, where each player has their own agendas, because all of their guilds have their various agendas that they're looking to put forward. So I would say it's probably going to be easier if all the players are from a single guild, or maybe a couple of guilds that are fairly well aligned. Just my thoughts there. So we get all 10 of the guilds. Then we start getting into, then we start getting into the 10th district. This is like kind of the main area that the source book looks at. This is not all of Ravnica, but the 10th district is kind of like the centerpiece. Some pretty cool info in here, talking about the different precincts of each of the district itself. Talking about what guilds operate there, unique locales, law and crime, different neighborhoods. I like the artwork. I like the maps. The maps are pretty cool. See if I can tilt that a little bit. Sorry, we're getting some unusual glare here tonight. I don't know what the deal is. I have not moved around any of the lighting. How weird. So we've got all the different precincts, people and rumors. Then we have a section about creating adventures. And as you see, there's just random charts all throughout. And of course, if you don't want to roll on random charts, just use those charts, the information as inspiration for you. There's a few maps of different locales. A lot of times we see some maps of the kind of like the headquarters for the guilds themselves. There's a bestiary that's going to include some new monsters as well, which I think is the other big selling point of this source book, is the bestiary with some pretty cool Magic the Gathering monsters be added to the mix. And the maps are pretty nice. These maps are pretty similar to the style that we saw in Waterdeep Dragon Heist. So, which, strangely enough, when I did my review of Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which came out at the same time as this, a lot of people were just complaining about the maps for Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and I was like, well, you've got 23 levels of this dungeon, which is huge. Just the scale of the squares themselves was double what it normally would be, and it wasn't that big a difference than what we were seeing in other products. So I was kind of like, I think people are getting a little too worked up. So we got an introductory adventure, Krenko's Way. It's not real long. It's not bad. A little too much. Okay, so this is an issue, and maybe this is because I'm more old school and I kind of gravitate more towards the old school style play. Some of the read alouds are a little long. In fact, Wizards of the Coast themselves, I could have swore they did an article not too long ago talking about like read alouds when creating an adventure. And your read aloud should be about 3 sentences, because most players, once you get past the third sentence, they start tuning out. They're not paying much attention. All right, so there we go with the adventure. Then we get some new treasures, some new magic items. would have liked to have seen more images of the different magic items as opposed to some of the artwork that we're getting here. Friends and foes. There we go. Now we're going to start getting into the various different creatures. It's giving us the challenge levels of them. And here we go. Start getting into the bestiary. So we've got different angels. Arc-like Phoenix. Conclave Dryad. So you're going to notice a lot of these creatures, if you happen to play Magic the Gathering, a lot of them are coming from the Guild of Ravnica release. So, very cool though. Like I said, this is another big selling point, in my opinion, of this source book is the bestiary and some of the really, really cool monsters and creatures that we can add to the proceedings. Obviously enough, it's not as if you have to run stuff in a Ravnica setting to utilize anything from this source book. Plus, flip that coin, you can utilize just about anything from your favorite Dungeons and Dragons setting in Ravnica as well. It's your own game. You can make it whatever you want, right? I always joke around that, you know, for an example, for Dungeons and Dragons, it's not like Mike Merles is going to come banging on your door saying, "Hey, you're not playing that right. You're not running that right." It's not going to happen. Jeremy Crawford's not going to come kicking down your door saying, "Hey, how dare you do that? That's not right." So, very cool stuff. Very cool monsters. Then again, I have to point out, I do dabble a little bit in Magic, not a ton. And it's Magic Online. It's Arena Online that I play. But I haven't played in a while. I haven't played in a couple weeks. Because I've been playing Battle Brothers a lot. So I have to talk about maybe that on tomorrow's show. So, all right. So we got, then we start getting into important NPCs that you might encounter from the various different guilds. And we've got stat blocks for them as well. There we go. And that is pretty much how the book will finish up. Going through with the various different important NPCs. And once again, just fantastic artwork. Phenomenal artwork throughout. A little more intense, I guess we would say. Well, I don't know, maybe not intense. A little higher quality, I guess we'll say. I'm not trying to knock the artwork in other Dungeons and Dragons books, but everybody knows the Magic the Gathering artwork is pretty impressive. So a little higher level of art, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And there we go. There we have the 256 pages of the Guildmasters Guide to Ravnica from Wizards of the Coast for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. All right, so what do I think of the source book? Well, let me grab a quick sip here. Okay, so if I take the book just as a source book, just as a supplement for Dungeons and Dragons, I like it. I really do. I like what's in it. It's not just an obvious money grab, because I'll be the first to admit that when I first heard that they were going to do Guildmasters Guide to Ravnica, I thought, come on, really? Out of all the settings that are possibly out there that Wizards of the Coast could look at, kind of expanding upon from the history of Dungeons and Dragons, going all the way back to 1974, they're going to go with a Ravnica book. Now, you got to keep in mind, recently, Eberron has been getting some love over on the DM's Guild, but that's all PDF stuff. So there are no physical books as far as that. And that, I would not say, is one of the big settings from the history of D&D. I mean, I'll just say, I don't think it's one of the big settings that people are like, man, I wish 5th edition would have XYZ. So the first thing I was thinking is, okay, it's kind of a money grab. I mean, is it, what are they trying to look at here? What is Hasbro effectively looking to do? Are they looking to, because I pointed this out before, and people sometimes don't believe me, but it is very true. Magic the Gathering makes way more money than Dungeons and Dragons does for Hasbro. It's just how it is. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Dungeons and Dragons does not make Hasbro money, but I'm just saying that Magic the Gathering makes loads more money for Hasbro than Dungeons and Dragons. But then again, even combined, Wizards of the Coast is a very, very tiny percentage of the profits of Hasbro on a yearly basis. So it's kind of like, okay, so what are they looking to do? Are they looking to introduce Dungeons and Dragons to people who play Magic the Gathering? Or are they looking to kind of get people who play Dungeons and Dragons to play Magic the Gathering? You know, which one is it? To be very honest, I don't think someone who's running D&D or who plays D&D and who've been playing D&D for quite some time and don't play Magic, I don't see how they're going to be interested in this. And I mentioned that while we were paging through this. I don't see the appeal. There's cool stuff in it. So I'm not saying, hey, don't get it. But if you don't have that tie-in because you play Magic the Gathering and you really like the whole Ravnica setting, I don't see people picking this up. People like that picking this up. That said, if you are a dungeon master, you play D&D, but you also play Magic the Gathering, then I would think that there is going to be some interest in getting this. Now, I'll be the first to point out, I play Magic the Gathering. People might think this is weird me saying this. I don't really care about the setting. I've never cared about whatever setting Magic the Gathering is supposed to be. I like the artwork. I like the different kind of monsters and stuff like that. I always love trying to figure out, okay, what kind of combos can I put together with some of these cards and things like that. That I totally love. As far as the fluff, I don't care. I don't care one iota about it. So, and I don't know much about it because it doesn't really matter to me. I'm there for the actual game. I'm not there for the background to it. So, for an example, if I were a Magic the Gathering player, like I am, but I didn't have any interest in Dungeons and Dragons, this would not be something that would get me in the door to D&D either. So I don't know. I honestly think it's a good product. I like it. I like the book. It's not phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. It's not, earth shattering. I think some folks will be a little disappointed because it is not an end all be all supplement to include, everything about Ravnica. It's only pretty much sharing kind of a taste of Ravnica, and it's kind of focused more directly on the 10th precinct kind of thing, and the different guilds. So I think some folks there are, expecting something that's going to be, like I said earlier, one of those big box sets that we used to see back in the day. They're going to be disappointed. If they're looking at something where they're like, wow, it's going to be like taking the colors of Magic from Magic the Gathering and making it like a role-playing game using the mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons, that's not happening either. It's D&D. It's the regular mechanics of D&D. It's spells from Dungeons and Dragons, with some new stuff. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, it's basically D&D. The mana colors really don't enter into the equation much, so people might be a little disappointed with that. That said, I think it's good. I like there's for me personally, running a game using this source book, I would swipe a lot of stuff. And I've talked about kit bashing games before. I do it all the time. I would steal a bunch of the cool stuff from this source book to utilize in my campaign that was in another setting. I don't think I'd go out of my way to create a Ravnica setting to run adventures in, yet I would steal stuff from this book to put into my own setting. So at the end of the day, on a scale of 1 to 10, I actually give the Guildmasters Guide to Ravnica an 8 out of 10. Like I said, I do think it's good. I just don't think it's phenomenal. And I have to scratch my head a little bit because rather than doing this source book, I would have loved to have seen something along the lines of, I know we're never going to see Greyhawk. I know it. And I know that Wizards of the Coast likes to, tip the cap to Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, but there really is no interest in going back to a lot of their stuff, a lot of their setting stuff. But I would have liked to have seen some of the other, like Dark Suns or something like that, even like Planescape. I would have liked to have seen that as opposed to this. But then again, I mean, I understand why Wizards of the Coast went in this direction, because there are so many people out there playing Magic, and Magic makes Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro a good chunk of change. All right, so that is it for today's show. On tomorrow's show, as I mentioned, I'm going to be shooting it early, maybe around 5 o'clock Central. It could even be 4 o'clock Central. I will decide. Follow the Gaming Gang on Twitter. That's when you always know what time the show's on, what the show's going to be about. But I will be unboxing Mystic Vale from my friends over at AEG. So when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to go visit thegaminggang.com, the actual website, for the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. By now you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. I will be back tomorrow. So until then, I am Jeff McAleer. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.